What's going on, you guys? Theo here with the big review, back yet again with another King of Fighters All-Star video. And in today's video, we are going to be doing our weekly subscriber Q&A, where we sit down and we take a look at a handful of comments and questions all across our different socials. From the comments section here on YouTube to Discord to the Reddit, we're going to go ahead and give a couple of these comments a platform on today's video. But before we get into all of that and more, make sure you guys smash that like button and subscribe. And for those of you who have not heard, we are doing a $25 Google Play or iOS gift card giveaway. You have about a week left to get entered in for that gift card giveaway. Link will be in the description for all the details on how you can get your hands on that. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get into this week's comments and questions. And our first question of the day is going to come to us from our official Discord, and Azra and Valerie would like to know, for the Q&A, should free-to-play players keep playing? How can we survive? What are good ways to get gems? Good characters for Dot that are free-to-play? Now, thank you for the question, Azra and Valerie, and there's a couple of questions rolled in here, so I'm going to try and answer each one of these individually. Now, the first one is going to be the toughest one, and that is, should free-to-play players continue to play this game, and how can they survive? Well, the first answer to the first question is going to be definitely yes. This game is still, whether people want to believe it or not, going to be a game that is going to be more free-to-play friendly than a lot of games out there. That isn't to say that this game is anywhere near perfect for free-to-plays, because no game is. However, it does have a lot of perks that you won't find in a lot of gacha games. Again, I've said this before, I've played a ton of gacha games out there, and some of them are downright off-putting. This one isn't as bad as a lot of them out there, however, this game does require you to think quite often and quite a bit about what it is that you are going to be doing and how you're going to be spending your rubies, and that's really what it comes down to. When free-to-play players decide that they're going to play a gacha game, they are already conceding the fact that they are always going to be a little bit behind other players out there that are going to have big pockets and are going to be spending a lot of money. So that is just going to be par for the course. I have always said to people that whales should not be people that we should be giving trouble, because at the end of the day, there is a debt of gratitude that is owed to whales, because they are the ones that are allowing us to continue to play these games, because without them, these games would shut down. However, for free-to-play players, what you need to do is you basically need to realize that there is going to be specific content that you're going to need to skip out on. And so therefore, if you really want to maximize in this game, my opinion is make sure that obviously you are doing every single login event, every single daily event that you possibly can, especially if it is going to yield you rubies. You do not have the luxury of missing days when it comes to things like League or Infinite Battle or Time Attack or all these different ways of getting these different rubies. You have to make sure that you're doing everything. Otherwise, you are going to struggle mightily with any game. However, that all being said, as I had mentioned, you are going to have to basically concede that you have to skip certain things, and that's okay. If you're free to play, that's something that you should have already known coming into these things. So really it just comes down to pinpointing specific content that you know that you are going to definitely want and that you know is probably going to be a safe bet going forward. So in my opinion, when it comes to limited banners, really you just want to look at these characters that come out with a really detailed eye and just go, okay, is this going to be something that I foresee myself using for the long term? And also, is this something that addresses a specific need for my account? So if you're somebody that finds yourself, for example, having issues with Immortals, whenever we had Boss Syndrome Nightmare Geese, then obviously that should have been your #1 priority, because that character we all knew was going to end up becoming a giant monster for Immortals, and lo and behold, here we are, and he is still one of, if not the best leaders for Immortals in general. So there's a lot that you need to really look at, but you just need to make sure that you are budgeting correctly and you're making sound decisions with your rubies and your in-game currency, because you don't have as much of that to throw around as players that do spend money. So really it just comes down to, if I were doing everything purely free to play, I would just be looking at these banners, trying to assess what the value is to my account, and then trying to decide from there whether or not that investment is going to be obsolete in the course of 2 months, or it is going to be something that I can use for the next 6 months or more. And that's tough sometimes to do, but it is doable. Like, for instance, when we had SS Kyo, I told everybody that that character looked like he was going to be relevant for a long time, and here we are with a limited banner since, and he is still extremely relevant, and still, in my opinion, hands down the most ridiculous character in the game. So it's just one of those things where you've got to really know what you're looking at and just do your homework before you make decisions. Now, the other thing in here is what are good characters with Dot that are free to play. So with that being said, there are quite a few of them that are going to be on the unified banner, so I'm not going to name them all, but if I had to name you just a couple of them that are going to be really good, of course, Gonitz is going to be still to this day an amazing free-to-play unit. You also have a character out there like K for burn if you really need help with those things. He is a phenomenal character. If you need poison, then of course Leona is going to be really good. If you need shock, then you have the Orochi Leona. There's a bunch of different options out there. It just comes down to what it is that you need. So those are going to be just a couple options, but honestly the unified banner hasn't had really good characters added to it for a while, but there's still a bunch of great legacy characters on there that we've had in the game for quite a while now that you'll get a lot of mileage out of. So hopefully that answers your questions, Azura and Valerie, and I appreciate the comment. And our next question comes our way from Kisami Hoshikaji, who asks, Theo, which one should I focus on, BS Geese or BS Zero? I know they are both good, but I'd like to know your opinion. Thank you for the comment, Kisami. I appreciate it, and I use this as an example of a lot of comments I get, and those comments usually come back around to which BS is better, which BS is better at this, BSs in general, everybody always wants ranked, right? And I don't feel comfortable ranking them, to be honest. I don't like ranking these characters in general, and the reason for that, especially with the limited banner characters at this point, one, they are all really good, and two, when it comes to these characters, they're all going to be better at certain things over one another. So they're all going to have their perks, they're all going to have their downsides. Every character in the game you can say this for, but especially when the parity is so large with these banners, it's very tough to just sit there and go, okay, this character is better at this, so this character is better at that, and you start to have to make a pros and a cons list for each character and sit there and weight them, and to me, it doesn't really benefit much to anybody. In my opinion, it just comes down to when you look at one of these characters, going back to a point that I made in the previous question, if you look at a character and you go, okay, this character is clearly going to be really good at this, this, and this, while this character over here isn't going to be good at that, that, and that, but it's also going to be good at this, this, and this, yada, yada, yada. All these different things you have to really think about. And it really just comes down to which character you feel like you're going to need the most. Like, for instance, with BS Geese. In my opinion, one of the best things about BS Geese is his leadership ability. So if you really need a really good leader for Immortals, and you need a leader that is going to be able to help you throughout most anything when it comes to some of these more difficult dungeons in PvE, then definitely BS Geese is the guy you want. If you need help with things such as expert difficulty against Nightmare Geese and Guild Raid, then you'll want to go with Boss Syndrome 0, because he's clearly going to be better there. It just really comes down to what it is you need, because to be honest with you, everybody's roster is going to be a little bit different, and therefore each roster is going to have its different strengths and weaknesses. So that's why I don't necessarily like to get too deep into the weeds on ranking these characters, because really there's no right or wrong answer, you know, unless you're saying that Orochi's the best one, which that's obviously not the case. But thank you for the comment, Kasami. I appreciate it as always. Next up, we have a question from Mr. Morningstar, who wants to know, I want to ask one of my friends questions about that new set, Big Bro Theo. How good is that set? Is it worth taking like the Kyo Iori SS set? Thank you for the question, Mr. Morningstar, and as far as this question is concerned, when it comes to the Nest set, the Behind the Veil set, this set is extremely good. In fact, I would say that set is definitely going to be more useful, at least in my opinion, than the previous couple that we've gotten, those being the Gears of Fate and the City of Darkness set, which is really only going to necessarily be a great set whenever you are looking at different modes where you're going to have your entire roster on the field, i.e. Immortals. models and so on and so forth. Whereas this newest Nest set is basically just going to be a, in my opinion, upgraded version of the Igniz set. Now, I have not run damage numbers yet. I am working on a spotlight for next week on this set that will break those numbers down. However, that is going to be next week, and this week I don't necessarily have that data in front of me, but what I can tell you through a lot of play testing using this card set, I am very impressed with the damage output. Now, it's going to be very tough to gauge what the difference is because, honestly, when you're talking about RNG, especially when it comes to that burst damage being on a RNG effect for both sets, comparing the two would be very tough. But just on paper, in my opinion, that set is just going to be extremely good, and I can tell you that that has been the set that I have used to get a lot of these really high damage runs solo, and I know that it made a big difference for some of my friends when they switched to it as well on my recommendation. So it's one of those things where right now I'm assuming that it is going to be flat out better, but time will tell, at least in the aspect and the respect of dealing just damage, because obviously there's going to be differences in the effects and you might want one over the other for specific things, i.e. in League you'd probably prefer an Igniz set, but again, your mileage may vary, and all of this content, if it's good, is always going to be good. It just comes down to how much, if it at all, is going to be better than the newest content, because typically there's going to be pros and cons for everything. But I appreciate the question and the comment. Thank you. Now we have a comment from Humzilla over on my Discord. Big shout out to the homie Humzilla, who has been a fantastic member of our community and wants to know, the new Moon and Star imprint stones are out with the COF. What do you think about the stones specifically? The strike, the grab, and the blast skill damage increasing stones. Also, a lot of people are saying not to craft these stones. Save your material for when the double attack stones arrive in the future. What do you think about that? Do you think that Netmarble will be generous enough to give double attack with those strike, blast, and grab damage increases? Thank you for the comment, Humzilla, and the long and the short of it is, I don't know. It's just very tough for me to know the answer to this question. If I had to answer it today, I would tell you probably just wait a few weeks and see what happens, especially with the anniversary. Now, me personally, I am probably going to be crafting a few of these, maybe. I don't know yet. I would like to do so for the content. The problem is the thing that's stopping me is the random nature of the boxes themselves. If they were selectors, then it'd be a no-brainer for the channel. I would be doing that and building those stones up to give you guys showcases and compare and contrast them. But for now, I would hold off. I do think that we will get double attack stones at some point. I don't think that it might be in the immediate future, but I do think down the road it is on the roadmap for them. So this is something that is tough to answer. I would just wait for a few weeks, especially coming up with the anniversary. I would at least wait until then and wait to see what happens. So that's my opinion on this one, Humzilla, and I appreciate you and the comment as always. And our next question comes our way from Cupra Montop. I might be butchering that name, and I apologize if so, but it wouldn't be a Q&A if I didn't. Is the BS still can't catch up to the SS, albeit being one series ahead? PvE related at least. So this question basically boils down to which is better, BS or SS. I'm gonna stick with what I said at the beginning of this video and paraphrase myself here, but all of these characters are so similar in performance as far as how good and how bad that they can be. I really just, I don't think that it matters to sit here and try to rank the two different versions of these limited banners. I really don't, because they're going to continue to release characters and content for both of these types of limited banners, and each set of them is probably going to be slightly better than the last, or right in line at least with the previous ones that were released. So all of these characters, again, there's so much parity and they're all so similar that it wouldn't make sense for me to sit here and answer this question. If I had to, as of today, and you held my feet to the fire on this, I would say that BS, in my opinion, is just been, as far as quantity of quality, better. However, then Kyo exists, and Kyo, in my opinion, is his own tier. So at that point, it's tough to know. It's just one of those things where, if you're looking for a pretty good bet as far as these characters coming out and both characters on the banner being must-haves or being characters that are extremely powerful, then you'll probably look to the BS banners and go, okay, they've got the better track record. But then again, you could sit here and point at specific characters from both types of limited banners and pick ones that are better than others, if that makes sense. So to me, it doesn't make sense to sit here and do that and to try to rank the two. I would say that it really just comes down to a case-by-case basis, and you'll just kind of want to judge each individual banner on its own merits. But that's pretty much going to be it for this week, you guys. I appreciate everybody who came out and showed up with comments and questions. You guys rock as always, and without you, these types of videos would not be possible. And I appreciate all of the members of my Discord who have been so supportive over the past couple of weeks and have been in there helping each other out, answering each other's questions. But that's going to be this week's Q&A. Like, share, and subscribe. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.
Continue.